Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Keeping your hands clean is one of the most important steps you can take to avoid getting sick and spreading germs to others. So be wise and wash your hands regularly to keep those germs at bay. Get more tips for healthy living by tuning in to Kaieteur Radio every Monday at 1:05 p.m. for your health matters.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Your Health Matters here on Kaieteur Radio. I hope everyone is doing well this cold, rainy afternoon. And today we will be discussing the issue of blood transfusion specifically. Our guest is the director of the National Blood Transfusion Service, Dr. Pedro Lewis, and he is a friend of the program. We're so happy to have him here. I asked him if he wanted to join on Zoom, and he said no, he wanted to be here in person. So I'm very, very happy to have you here this afternoon, Dr. Lewis. And we know you've been busy because you had World Blood Donor Week just last week. Tell us a little bit about the activities before we get into our discussion.
So actually, we're not finished. We're not sure yet. This year we basically look at celebrating with the entire population. A lot of I usually tell people that Region 4 is not Guyana. We only don't have donors just in Region 4. We have donors in practically all the regions. So we kind of expanding our celebration. It's good that we make special effort to say thanks. We are not the patient that actually receiving the blood, but on behalf of the patients, we usually go out. Only yesterday we came back from Sipiru to Oriyaro. Region 6 kept their celebration in Oriyaro, Sipiru area, where we give thanks to the donors there that donated blood. The girls or the team in New Amsterdam usually go there on a quarterly basis. So we make sure, all blood donors there, we went back, we say thank you for your contribution, and we're looking forward for the continuous contribution as it relates to blood donation. We also, I think Friday, we'll have a simple activity in Region 3, West Demerara Hospital, and Tuesday we'll be in Region 2. So it's not over yet. I don't think like 1 day or 1 week is enough to say thanks to, for something that you cannot purchase in the market. Persons take 15 minutes of their time every 2 months to go to these sites and donate blood. They should be appreciated. And
in what form are you showing your appreciation?
Of course, we give out like tokens to the donors. We can't give monetary, stuff because it's voluntary donation. We try to keep away as much money from that particular process. This is something that's continuous. There's no way, you're going to stop. Scientists up to now cannot come up with synthetic blood. So if you're going to put money to it, trust me, you're going to run bankrupt. So, and it doesn't make sense because this is something that everybody may need at some time of their life. So it's basically you help me and I help you sometime in the future, and you're going to keep circulating. So it doesn't make sense that you put, money to something like that. You cannot buy it.
That's true. So we're talking about blood transfusion, and most people hear that and they think, okay, it's just transferring blood. But can you give us, break down the scientific meaning for us here on Kaieteur Radio and for our listeners?
So it's basically you're taking blood and blood components from one person and you put it into another person. And it's not a simple process. Many persons may think, it's a simple process. It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the particular age of the person. It depends on the diagnosis of the person, whether, they got heart issues, whether they got kidney issues. So, and of course, based on, signs and symptoms of a particular individual. So it's not just taking blood and just transfer to person just like that. You may know that if you know the history of blood transfusion is that, it started by basically people using animal blood, and then it come down to using human blood, and persons still used to die because of incompatibility as it relates to the blood transfusion. So it had like a percentage of persons who are going to die where they just take out blood for one person and put it into the other. This is why we celebrate World Blood Donors Day. A lot of persons don't know, because the 14th of June is the birthday of a scientist called Carl Einstein, who developed the whole ABO antigens. And by him develop the ABO antigens, you know who is compatible to who.
Yeah, and all of the transfusions are based on compatibility.
Based on compatibility.
So you can't take blood just like that and give it to one person or one source and give it to another. You have to go through a process, a screening process and all of that.
Yeah.
But can you tell us, like, why? I know that persons know that, but most people would know that if you're in surgery, you need blood, that you're eligible, might be eligible for transfusion. A lot of pregnant women get blood as well. But can you give us like a percentage of what is
So at GPAC, like 1 in 3 pregnant mothers receive blood, which is a lot.
A lot.
Which is a lot. And of course, this is based on something that we call physiological anemia, where the plasma volume increases, and this is physiological, increases during pregnancy, and you find that the blood can go down low. This is why it's very important you deal with this particular issue in a holistic manner. A diet, of course, is important, and of course, the mothers visiting the health centers at an early stage. If you're going to visit the health center very late, it's impossible for the doctor going to increase or advise you how to increase your blood count in a few weeks' time, right? Because remember, when you iron deficient, you have to first fill the gap of the storage, and then it will reflect in your peripheral level. So it's something we got to deal with, and we got to deal with it in an urgent manner. And the mothers got their responsibility to play in this. You got to go to the health center early, so that they could discover that this particular mother has anemia in pregnancy, and it could deal with that.
There are a lot of cases like that, but in terms of surgery, how many? Well, what percentage?
Well, I can't say offhand as it relates to surgery. What I can say is that if, of course, the surgery is elective surgery, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get transfused. It means that you could correct that matter or correct that particular problem and then come to surgery, right? Not everybody who blood count is low need blood, right? If it's emergency, if it's something that is urgent, well, yeah, you will need a transfusion. But if it's elective surgery, you need to correct that, right? And what I'm saying is, all of this is part of what you call patient blood management, right? It's an equilibrium between the collection of blood and how we use it, right? So it's not because you go in for particular surgery, you need blood. And the next thing too is that particular problem is supposed to be, fixed in the clinic. So when person go to surgery clinic, you don't go to surgery clinic just for you to book a date for surgery. You need to make sure that everything is intact, right, before you go to surgery, meaning that your hemoglobin level is okay, you don't have any bleeding issues and all of that. So when you go into surgery, there's no risk there when you're under anesthesia. So many cases, elective surgery, those problems could be fixed, and it could be fixed again by diet, and it could be fixed by medication. You don't need blood transfusion.
And is there a certain level of hemoglobin that is needed before?
Yeah, of course, and of course, that again, it's based on the clinical issue of the particular patient, or whether these patients have complications like heart, kidney complications and stuff. So it's not just you put in a particular hemoglobin level to it.
And we touched on it just a few minutes ago, in terms of the rules surrounding transfusion. What are those rules? Some simple ones. You can't go into
in the past, person will say you must reach HB at 10, hematocrit level at 30. But like I said, blood transfusion is not based on just numbers, hemoglobin level, is based on clinicals. When a patient comes to you, you're not just looking at the values or lab values, you're looking at the patient. You're fixing a patient. You don't fix, the particular illness. You're fixing a patient. So everything need, to be in line, because a person with heart problems, a person with kidney problems is not the same as a person without. 18-year-old is not the same as a 75-year-old patient, right? So there's no fixed value there as it relates to transfusion. You got to look at the patient holistically.
We're talking about transfusion, but the main substance is blood, right? Yeah. So there are certain types of blood. Can you list the four? I think it's four types.
Yeah, A, B, and O.
But what is the universal one? There's a universal.
In terms of
donor, universal
group.
Donor.
In terms of group, the universal donor, of course, is O, and the universal recipient is AB.
And in terms of our reasons for, let's go into donating, because that's the main thing, right? You're always pushing for donations.
Yeah.
Can you say where what's your target and where you are in terms of the collection?
Yes. This is a very important question. We had some issues. In 2020, in March, we had a reduction, about 23% reduction as it relates to collection. It didn't really affect us, because when you talk about, when you're speaking about affecting, our system is somebody who probably dying and need blood and they can't get the blood or something like that. But like I explained before, the blood bank is just like one small component in the blood system. Of course, our responsibility is of collection. The hospital responsibility is usage and how they use it. And this is where patient blood management comes into play. Of course, we could decide whether to do elective surgery or not. There's a lot of surgery that, you don't need to do it. It's elective surgery, you could postpone it, right? Open heart surgery and transplant and so on. So what happened in 2020 is exactly that. We had postponement of those surgeries, basically. And, of course, that allows us now to just deal with the patient that need blood now, right? Most importantly, our obstetric patients, which is our pregnant mothers and so on. So, it balances off. So as much as we get 23% reduction, we could have deal with our patients that need blood like now.
But there was a 23% reduction in 2020, but what about now? Has it decreased?
So as it is now, it's great. The fact is that in 2020, what we did is we did what you call the community sensitization and blood drive, where we went to the health centers, primary care centers, because most persons felt uncomfortable going into the hospital, right? So, but they felt comfortable going into the health centers. So we did our community sensitization, person donated in the health centers, and that remains. We still do that. And of course, we have these companies, these organizations, governmental, non-governmental organizations, that is back on board with us. So you find there's an advantage. I mean, a lot of persons said, COVID-19, did harm to them and it was a negative impact. But for us, I think it was a positive because it gives us the ability, to think, to strategize, to do different things. And those things remain. And now the normal organization returned to us. Plus, we have new organizations now. There's a lot of new company opening that is on board with us now. New governmental and non-governmental organization that is back with us. So it's going great.
And how much blood have you collected? How many units?
So far, we about near 6,000 units for the year.
And that's near your target or over?
Yeah, it's near our target. And our target is usually be between 10,000 to 12,000 a year.
Could you speak, we're talking about, we strayed a little bit, but could you speak to the benefits? We talked about blood transfusion, and that's our topic, the benefits of that whole thing, because we talked about surgery and pregnant women and the risk and so on, but there are also
benefits for person, and I think this is very important. I think it's very important. A lot of persons and doing that too, it encourages others, and I expect persons that, we have over 15,000 persons that donated in Guyana, and if those persons could, explain to the others how they feel, what is some of the benefits, they have from donating blood, I think they're going to be great, because persons suffering from high blood pressure, it helps to stabilize your blood pressure. You have high cholesterol, it helps to get rid of, the bad fat, we will call it triglyceride, cholesterol. Person, felt after donating, they get a good rest in the night and so on. So it prevents heart problems, it prevents severe strokes and so on, because of the cholesterol that will block your arteries and so on. So basically, if you donate and you get rid of the cholesterol, everything after that, it prevents that. So I think there's a good way, a good reason for person to donate, a very good reason for person to donate.
And in terms of your voluntary, you touched on it. It's like we don't pay to donate or to collect blood. Why is this important? Because people would want to know.
This is a good question. That's a good question.
Why we gotta give blood and why we don't get money?
Yeah, this is a good question. The reason why you're gonna move money from donation, because I mentioned that to you, is that, I mean, if you're gonna pay somebody to donate, you don't know whether this person's safe. All they're concerned about receiving that money.
Yes.
Right? They might be a person of high risk, and of course, there's no test going to pick up somebody that got infected today, and you test them today, and going to pick up that they're positive. There's a window period for all infections, right? And it's very important, that we, try to move those persons away from the window period. That's why we defer donors and so on. But if you're going to pay somebody, their focus is going to be on that money. So, they could be high risk and donate, and somebody else get infected. You understand? So we try to move away from paid donation, and I must say, our percentage of voluntary donation is remarkable. Right? It's remarkable. And beside that, not only the percentage of voluntary donors that is remarkable, is our percentage of retention. Right? We got like 80% of persons who gonna donate 2 to 3 times in 1 year, which means that if you come to me 3 times already for the year, and I test your blood and you're negative, it's unlikely on the 4th time you're going to be positive. So all of that, saying all of that, going to tell you basically voluntary blood donations guaranteeing safety and sufficiency.
And plus you have a screening process.
Yeah.
A wide screen. So we're going to talk about that screening process when we come back. We just take a short break, and when we come back we'll talk about that.
No problem.
Meet Terence and Shabana. Both believe they've been exposed to COVID-19 and were advised by the Ministry of Health to quarantine themselves at home. It's a normal working day and Terence grows tired of home quarantine guidelines. So he heads off to work using public transportation. Now all the passengers and his co-workers are in danger of contracting COVID-19 from Terence. After work, Terence heads straight to the gym for daily exercise. He shares the same exercise equipment with many others that day. Later on that evening too, Terence heads off to play several rounds of dominoes with some friends. By breaking the quarantine rules, Terence has endangered the lives of the passengers, his co-workers, members of his gym, and his friends with whom he played dominoes. By contrast, Shabana practices social distancing. She works from home every day, and in the evenings, she video chats with her family and friends to stay connected. Shabana is also obeying all the guidelines that the Ministry of Public Health says we follow when quarantined at home. Shabana has infected no one. Let's all do our part and practice physical and social distancing by avoiding unnecessary travels and staying home from large groups of people, including our families and friends. A message from the Ministry of Health in collaboration with PAHO WHO. For more information, visit our website at www.health.gov.gy or visit our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter page.
Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Welcome back to Kaieteur Radio. You're listening to Your Health Matters. I'm your host, Rehanna Ramsay, and I have with me Dr. Pedro Lewis he's the director of the National Blood Transfusion Service that's located in the Georgetown Hospital compound, and he's talking to us about blood transfusion, and we were also talking about blood donation, and he was giving us a rundown just before we went to break about the screening process that you have to go through. You have some of these persons on hold because you have to make sure that the blood is screened properly before you take it or you distribute it or you have it in the blood bank for distribution. Tell us about that process a little bit, and then we'll go into our other discussion.
So the most important part of the process, we already know that when a person comes into the blood bank, you get a preliminary questionnaire that you may answer, and you yourself could defer yourself if you think that you don't make it to donate. For example, some simple ones like your weight. If you know for a fact that you're not 50 kg, you could just pick up and leave.
50 kg is how many pounds?
110 pounds.
Good.
So you could leave. Those some simple ones, that you could defer. We call it self-deferral. If you read and you could read the questionnaires and stuff, and you know that you have certain risk factors. You had a ear piercing yesterday, you had a tattoo a week before and stuff. You could just defer yourself. The other part is that basically we're going to ask you a few questions as it relates to risk factors, and we're asking you these questions not because you want to know your personal business, is because we're looking at the end results. And this this here will tell you whether your product going to be safe or not, because it's going to somebody. Not necessarily mean your family relative might go to somebody. So we ask you those questions as it relates to your lifestyle, your sexual lifestyles, and so on. Tattoos, like I mentioned, your piercing, where you've been tested for any particular infection, where you travel, and all of that. Is looking at epidemiology as it relates to infectious markers. And a wide range of questions may lead to others and so on. And we're not saying that you have a particular infection, because like I mentioned before, every infection got a window period. We may defer you for a period of time. We just tell you to come back in a particular period of time, and we're going to take you, because we know for certain that, you had a particular tattoo over several particular point of time. So if we test you and you're positive, it will show up. In terms of tattoo, a lot of persons have a question as it relates to tattoo, because in some countries, if you have tattoo, you could donate right away. For example, the UK. And the reason why is because those tattoo parlors are being controlled by the Ministry of Health, right? So you cannot have a tattoo on the road or have a tattoo.
Yeah.
It's basically illegal to have a tattoo on the road or any corner or any shop or anything. It's being controlled by the Ministry of Health. So those persons in those countries, you could have a tattoo and you could donate right away, right? And of course, after, we ask you those questions, we did your extraction. Extraction takes about between 8 to 10 minutes, right? And it must take between a period of time. If it gone over a particular period of time, it also affects the quality of the products. And then we will do testing, right? We do immunohematology testing. This is basically your blood group, your risk factors, your phenotype. If you're RH negative, we want to know whether, it's a true RH negative or, you're weak D and so on. And of course, we do serological testing where we test for hepatitis C, B, HIV, HCLV, Chagas, malaria, syphilis, and so on. And you will know with all these testing, this take time. That's why voluntary blood donation is important. You cannot come now to donate for family relative in the next 10 minutes. All this take time. So through all of that, then we say a product is, safe, and we have it there for the patient.
It's most likely that when you come to donate for a relative, your relative won't get that blood,
exactly,
right?
now.
Because you have to go through a screening process. So your blood is stored there. And somebody else's blood that is compatible with your relatives would
get blood. That's why we keep telling people that some people, and there's a myth out there, a lot of persons, when you go to them to donate, I waiting till my relative, in the hospital, relative depends on you blood, they will never make it.
Sure.
They will never make it. So we got to take the particular, that out of our head. You understand? Because you never know what could happen in the next seconds. Right? And
there are other components that you take along with the red blood cells.
Right.
There are other components. Touch on those for me.
A lot of persons, the most important one, of course, is red cells. Red blood cells, we call PAC cells. So when we say blood, most persons think, red blood cells. We have plasma, we have the liquid aspect or components of the blood, the liquid components of the blood, which is plasma. And of course, plasma will, you'll get the various clotting factors from that you could separate also. You have platelets from that you could separate also from the plasma. Platelets has, become a real issue because, in the past we still have a lot of patients, leukemia patients, cancer patients that will need chemotherapy and so on. I saw in papers the other day on Facebook somebody with idiopathic thrombocytopenia that need platelets.
What's that?
The low platelet count, and they just can't find a reason. So person will have like marks on the skin, petechias, these red marks on the skin and so on, which basically telling that your platelets low. We know platelets is responsible for hemostasis, which is a clotting process. So if your platelet count is low, you will get those marks, on your skin, easily bruise and so on your skin.
And if you cut, you bleed out
and so on. So but most importantly, we need platelets, a lot of platelets for persons who doing chemotherapy, babies with leukemia and so on. Well, in the past, it used to be, I see a lot of stress on the blood bank because, you know, if somebody asks for 10, 15 platelets, it means that you got to get 10, 15 donors. Not like now that we have the technology where you could have single donor platelets, where you could get all the platelets but from just one individual, right? You could get all the platelets from just one individual. And this is a message, you know, we need to send out there because still a lot of persons don't know that we have this particular technology here. You know, they get all scared and anxious when they hear that, you know, when the doctor tell them that a particular patient need, you know, 5 units of platelets. You know, you could get all from a particular individual. You just got to get one donor, go on the machine. The problem is with that is that it takes time. It takes about, 45 to 90 minutes. But the quality of platelets is excellent. Because you're getting it from one person, it means that the patient is exposed to just one type of antigens from the platelets.
We spoke about the different types of blood or
blood products.
Yeah, the blood. Now we're talking about the components. But in terms of, I've heard people say this, and I mentioned it when we were on break, that there's, I have this type of blood and it's rare. Is there a scarcity of a specific type?
Okay, so if you look up the definition of blood and blood products, scarcity is there, always scarce. And the reason why scarcity and scarce is mentioned with blood is because we know, for one, is that the expiry date, blood only lasts for 42 days. So even if the entire country donate today, the next 45 days, it all expired.
Wow.
Or 42 days, I should say, 35 to 42 days. It all expired. So scarcity comes with the word blood and blood products. But if you're talking about like the percentage of a particular group that is existed in a particular population, of course you will have that. Like for example, the AB negatives and the O negatives and so on. The important thing about that, again, is that we need to manage it, basically. You need to know who are the person that is high risk that may need it. For example, if we have a 16-year-old comes into the hospital, ectopic pregnancy, and she's bleeding, you want to make sure that she gets, and of course she's RH negative, you got to make sure that she gets her RH negative blood. Because it's not that you cannot give her RH positive blood, you could, but she wouldn't be able to make children, right? Might be unable to make children in the future, right?
Just because she got the wrong blood.
Just because, it's not that she get the wrong blood, it's that you have to make a call whether you want this person to live or you want them to make children.
Wow.
Right? So, it's not that you cannot, give her RH positive blood. She could get it, she wouldn't die if she get it. Right? But, you want her to get it because you want her to be able to reproduce in the future. You want her to be able to make children. So it's just a matter that you have to manage it. But a 16-year-old who is RH negative is different from a male who is 75-year-old.
Yes.
That is RH negative. Right? I'm putting this out there because I want persons to understand the various scenarios that could happen. And if the doctor going to tell you something, it's not a reason that he don't want to give you the RH negative blood. You could get it, you wouldn't die, but we have to look at the 16-year-old. You understand?
So
who want children.
You're always weighing options.
Of course.
With them.
But for 75 who is RH negative, he don't have to make children. It wouldn't affect him. You don't have to make kids, right? It will affect a mother of childbearing age, but it wouldn't affect him. So he could receive the RH positive blood, right?
And is there a specific group that you can give to anybody?
Well, RH negative, O negative, anybody could receive that.
Okay.
Right?
And so that's
Because
always in demand.
No, it's not really always in demand. Is that you must have it when somebody needs it, because you wouldn't get that RH negative policy showing up so frequently.
Wow.
But you must have it when somebody, like I said, who really needs it, gets it, right? So you cannot be wasting it on probably on a 75-year-old person who is RH negative, a male person who's RH negative. So everybody thinking, blood banking, transfusion medicine is just a simple thing. It is not. You understand? And all of these things that I mentioned is that the hospital have to take it about on itself to develop certain policies, moving forward. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to think about everybody. It's not something I run to the supermarket and pick up. I can't run to the supermarket and pick it up. Right? So you need to think about others when you're making sort decision. This is the reason why they say, and this is in the definition, you transfuse somebody that is absolutely in need of transfusion. And that word absolute is very important.
In terms of the demand, you spoke about reaching your target, but in terms of the demand, are you able to supply the demand for blood?
And the demand is, relatively speaking, it depends on how we use it. I mean, so far in a year we haven't, had problems in giving somebody who, like I said before, who needed, didn't get the blood. Basically, who needed it? Anybody die from not receiving blood. So, I mean, when you're looking at the demand, because, for example, I mean, if you look at the amount of heart surgery we did already for the year, we did so many heart surgeries already for the year.
And those were backlogs.
Yeah. So, I mean, that tells a lot. And coming next week, we have, next 15 person doing heart surgery. If you were in a system that you're doing so many heart surgeries, it means that, you're good. You're in a good place.
And you said that you have to dump the blood. If you collect it, you have to dump it after a certain time. So that means you have to constantly get blood.
Yeah, if it expires, but we never reach that stage. We never reach that stage.
You always need for it.
Of course, every second is not in Guyana. Every second in the world, somebody utilizes blood. You understand?
Talk to me about, I know that the National Blood Transfusion Service is centralized. Talk to me about how patients in, let's say, out the region, in New Amsterdam or these other particular, how is that being
possible
done?
Yeah, good. So this is a good question. So having a centralized system is a plus. It's a gold standard. It's a gold standard for many countries. Many countries right now in Latin America who trying to close down their extra blood banks. They have 5, 10, 15 blood banks and so on. We're trying to close down those blood banks just to have a centralized system. So a centralized system for us is an achievement, is a gold standard. Many countries, right now it's gaining a lot of traction, centralized system. And centralized basically means that you do all your quality assessment, all your testing at one site, and then you distribute. So those countries like Baltica, they have refrigerator where they basically store blood.
In the region?
In the regions. They store blood. They collect on a weekly basis. They store. In LATAM, we use, this is the opportunity to say thanks to we use Trans-Guyana. We transfer our blood to Trans-Guyana. We don't have to pay anything. We just take it here, and they will carry it to the LATAM hospital.
So you have how many satellites?
So we store blood in Region 1, Region 7, Region 2, Region 3, Region 6, Region 9, Region 10.
So all the regions have?
Yeah, basically.
And those are set up at the hospitals or?
The hospitals. The hospitals where it most needed.
Okay, so
Mostly needed.
so every week you have
Persons who will
distribution.
come, collect blood, and
And that depends on what they're
requirements.
requesting,
Yeah, they request.
requiring or whatever.
And they must have a particular amount there, just in case it's emergency.
So you're well sorted out in
Try
terms
to
of
sort out, yeah.
distribution.
So if by any case they have any case, maternal mother that they utilize, right away we send back again for them.
And those are distributed.
Distributed,
Via the system that you have.
yeah.
We spoke at length about a lot of these things I have here. In terms of your activity, because we're coming to a closing. In terms of your activity, first let me ask you. We spoke about the satellite system and where they're storing the blood that you have, but in terms of the donation, where do we are there specific sites that you can go and donate blood, or do you
Good
set
question.
up? Do you set up with as you go along with various ministries and agencies?
Right. So, in terms of donation, we have two methods basically. You could either come on site, where we have our site, of course, in at Ramsay Street, Georgetown. There's a central blood bank there. Region 3, the one that we recently built, very comfortable environment there.
And that's
in
near
Region 3.
that's near where you store it, or also?
Yeah, it is right near we store. We store right in the lab there, but the correction site is in the compound.
Okay.
Beautiful area. Very, very comfortable, spacious. And the reason why we did that, of course, is because the amount of donors that come from there, persons say they have to cross the bridge, they have to pay so much money and so on to come in town. So we decided to build a collection site there. Beautiful area. Person, will feel comfortable going there. And of course, in Region 2 too, we have a collection site there too, where a person could go and donate. In Letem too, you could go and donate at the hospital. Linden Hospital Complex too, you could go and donate at the site there in Linden Hospital Complex. And of course, in Region 6, person could go and donate there. And of course, if you're part of an organization, we come to you. It doesn't matter where, you give us a time and be there, and it costs you nothing. All you have to do is get the person. You could do your own sensitization, or we could do sensitization for you, because persons have a lot of questions as it relates to donation, and this is how we spread the word,
And
this is how we get the right information go out there. And we set up right there when we do the blood donation. Right?
So, in terms of our World Blood Donor Day, which is June 14th, which was last week, what was your specific focus? Because you spoke about you still have activities going on and so on.
Yeah.
Was there a specific focus of
So the focus basically is to keep sensitizing people, and persons like activity, they will focus on your activity, they're going to listen what you have to say, and you do your sensitization there. And, just by going to OERO, Siputo, and we did the particular activity, the staff already did collection. And they will usually go and get, 30 units and so on. They actually went there and get over 50 units of blood just by doing that, And you keep adding persons to your list, and eventually you will see that your numbers increase, right? Persons like to hear the reason they're doing this, and they like to be appreciated. Not everything is all about money, and we gotta understand that. Not everything you need to push money in front. Is that if you're gonna do something that is gonna benefit everybody, and person know the importance of their doing this, I think you will get your reward for it. And it's not basically the blood bank getting reward. It basically is a patient in the hospital, and you don't know when it's your turn.
True. So let's, just before we wrap up, who would you like to say thank you to in terms of your here are people who would have been supporting the National Blood Transfusion Service. We know the Ministry of Health and Georgetown Public Hospital, they're basically go without saying. But in terms of the private sector and so on, there are specific people you said that would usually partner and support.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't mention all the names. It will take me a day to mention all the. Trust me, in Georgetown alone, we have over 350 collaborators. We're talking about the amount of churches, the amount of budget, the amount of, temples and so on that participated us. I just, like to say thank you to all those organizations and the voluntary donors who, take the 15 minutes and donate blood. It's safe. We never want anybody dying from donating blood. And these persons keep coming and keep coming and keep coming and keep giving and giving and giving all the time. And, it take just 15 minutes. And anybody that never did before, I think now is the time to start. You never know. You never know who life, among the persons that donate blood. They don't know who this blood went to. All they know, somebody benefit from it, and if I could tell you that we don't throw away any units of such. Persons receive that blood. Somebody received that blood. Somebody gained from it. They don't know who they receive the blood from too, and those persons too. I encourage them to spread the word. Let persons know. You don't have to give them a specific. You just got to say, one time, I went in the hospital and a unit of blood saved my life, and I think you should start giving and don't worry about the myth out there as it relates to blood donation. But there's lots of organizations, and we keep increasing. So what we're doing, what we do, of course, you cannot give everybody something every year, but we try. Every year we focus on new organizations. And next year what we want to do too, we have different plans every year. We try to change it up a bit. And we can come with something different you got to remember, this thing is all about community effort. There's only so much the ministry could do, but I think if the more community participation you get, it's better for the system. Yeah, so I just want to say thanks to all the organization that assist us.
All right, so we're about to wrap up, and before we go, I'd just like you to let persons know how they can get in contact with the National Blood Transfusion Service, or just in case they want to know more, if they want to donate blood, just refresh their memory, because we have people viewing on Facebook as well as listening across our frequency on radio. So just let them know, and we just...
Yeah, again, if you're willing to donate, you have any queries, you have any questions, we're on Facebook too, National Blood Transfusion Service, Rehanna. Or you could call us. We're on 223-7182 or 226-9022. You could get us. If you go on our Facebook too, you will see cell numbers too that you could call, and you get quick response from us. If you have, and I always say, if you're part of an organization, any organization, let this be a particular event for you every year. Make sure you have 1 or 2 blood drive every year. Let it be, like I said, it's a most simple and cost-effective event that you could have, right? That will have, I think will have the most impact. It comes first in front any other thing. You're saving lives here. So what I'm saying is that you call us, it won't cost you anything, right? We bring our equipment, we bring our chairs, we have our staff that is being paid by the ministry. You get a Vitamalt, just a facial. After you finish donating, and it's simple for you. We work with your time also, so based on your time, we work along with your time. We work from Sunday to Sunday, and also on holidays too. So we know a lot of persons busy, and this is the reason why we work in according to your time. So if you want to get in us, we're in Region 2, Saudi Hospital Correction Site. Region 3, West Demerara Hospital Correction Site. Region 4, this is Ramani Street. You use the Ramani entrance and you get us. Region 6 in New Amsterdam Hospital, you will see it here in the hospital compound. Region 9, Letem Hospital. Region 10, Rehanna Hospital Complex. Thank you.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our program. For those who tune in via Facebook and even radio, we're glad that you were with us. We hope that you learned a little bit more about blood transfusion and blood donation, and we hope that you join the band of persons, especially if you're eligible, to donate blood, because giving blood saves lives. So that brings us to the end of the session, and until next time, we do hope that you take good care of yourself.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.